Okay, Matthew Lee, Inner City Press, on behalf of the Free UN Coalition for Access. Thanks a lot for this briefing. Inevitably, I'm going to have to sort of tie this down to current examples. It's sort of what you think that today's resolutions would mean for. And one would be Burundi. It seems like Peacebuilding has done a lot of meetings on it. The chair of the configuration has gone to D.C., he's gone to the country. And yet today, the council is considering whether to send police, very specific proposals. Is there any involvement, or should there be any involvement, or would this resolution provide for future involvement in decisions like the ones being deliberated today, of how many forces to send? And then, I also wanted to ask on Sri Lanka. This would maybe be for either of you. What is the status of the Peacebuilding Fund's engagement in Sri Lanka? Have any funds been dispersed? If so, to what projects? And is there a place in the fund for this continuing search for accountability for possible war crimes in the country? Thanks.
Thank you.
On Burundi, I'll let Oscar speak about the fund. Already, and thank you, Matthew, for the question. Already, we have seen the involvement of the peacebuilding configuration and the work which has been led by the ambassador of Switzerland, who has briefed the Security Council numerously, as I'm sure you're aware. And this has played into the understanding of the situation on the ground of the Security Council. And the Security Council's actions are taken in light of those briefings. Remember, we're an advisory body. So the whole idea is for us to bring perspectives from a non-militaristic, from a non-securitarized perspective, focusing much more on how we can take advantage of those elements in the country that are pro-peace, that are looking to create a sense of comfort and security through better governance, through involvement of political parties on the ground, through getting the government itself to work better in a much more transparent and democratic way, and how it engages with its own various institutions. This has already been happening, Matthew, and my conviction is that none of the decisions, whether it is with the UN Security Council or, for that matter, the Peace and Security Council of the African Union, are being taken without taking into account what the Peacebuilding Commission and its configurations are doing on the ground. But thank you, that was spot on.
Thank you also for these questions. I think it's extremely important actually to note that in Burundi, actually the Peacebuilding Fund has been very active over the years and very active in actually building the resilience of communities to prevent conflict at the local level. Right now, maybe one very important project ongoing as we speak is the network of women peace builders on the ground, some 4,000 to 5,000 women that are daily actually managing, resolving conflicts related to land disputes, played a very important role in preventing electoral violence, addressing a lot of this intercommunal violence. One could say that a lot of the efforts that went into building the resilience, the social cohesion, the dialogue structures in the society have maybe, and do explain to this day, why the country is still together, and hopefully additional measures can help in this very delicate moment. We, through the Peacebuilding Fund, have several ongoing initiatives actually to promote the participation of youth and women in the whole life, the political and recovery life of the country. But maybe let me address two particularly important programs. One has been the possibility to extend the presence of human rights monitors. So the Peacebuilding Fund has been instrumental in allowing the Office of the High Commissioner to retain its presence after the mission had closed down over a year ago. And maybe, and in anticipating this resolution, maybe to announce here and now a historic signing, an agreement between the Peacebuilding Fund and the African Union for the Peacebuilding Fund to actually help support the payment of its own human rights observers on the ground. And so here you have translated this notion of the UN working closer with regional organizations in a context which helps operationalize a regional organization, its activities on the ground, but also help train and raise the capacity, because this is a joint program that the Office of the High Commissioner and the African Union are having on the ground. We are also supporting political dialogue at the local level, and we are also supporting the efforts of the Special Envoy, Jamal Ben Omar, to complement many of the activities that thus far the resolutions have not provided necessarily the funding for. So again, the Peacebuilding Fund can play a very important role in linking the work of political missions with the UN country team, civil society, and governments. In the case of Sri Lanka, and again, I would like to say to the press, I mean, we're actually only now starting to translate all these examples into things that we can share with you, because much of what we do is actually done by others. I mean, we are not an operational entity. We finance UN operational entities. So many of the projects that you will have heard of are projects that are implemented by UNICEF, World Food Programme, UNHCR, UNDP, UN Women, and others. In the case of Sri Lanka, just very importantly, because this talks to how fast the Peacebuilding Fund can respond to changing circumstances in a country. So with the new government in Sri Lanka coming in, this issue of accountability became extremely important, and the government's own electoral platform ran on a peace-building strategy. The Peacebuilding Fund was immediately able to support 3 priority programs. One was the whole resettlement of women head of households, internal IDPs, back in lands in the north that had been, again, reallocated from military occupation purposes to civilian purposes. And this required a very rapid action that was supported by the fund and then complemented by other funding from donors, but that put UNHCR and UNICEF in the forefront on the integration and resettlement process. We have also started a process to support the Office of National Reconciliation by bringing expertises like the special rapporteurs who are bringing in best practices, international standards to the type of national dialogue that has to go into national reconciliation and transitional justice measures. And last but not least, providing direct support to the Northern Provincial Councils, this form of decentralized governance that is included in the Constitution of Sri Lanka, but that requires the type of technical support and budgetary support to make this part of an inclusive political development process that integrates central authorities and local authorities in a dialogue that focuses around peace, reconciliation, and development. So these are just some few examples, but more will come very soon.